distinguished members of the panel of speakers, my fellow guardians of health and wellness, good afternoon. A year ago, of course, I was sincerely PSOM and Dr. Homeopathy, my boss and my friend. I remember calling him boss because there was one time I was invited to Malaysia for a series of talks on different wellness community. Before we left, Homer invited me for dinner and called my host, which she knows personally, and told her that I was his boss. So when I reached Malaysia, it was so lovely being the boss of Dr. Homer. I was treated so generously and so well. And they were proud, actually, introducing me to their friends. Oh, you're the boss of Dr. Homer, because Dr. Homer is very popular in the wellness community in Malaysia. And they were so proud that the boss of Homer is here in Malaysia. But actually, I am his boss when I'm in Malaysia, but in the Philippines, he's my boss. In fact, almost a year ago, he called me if I could join a gathering of the PSOM in Boracay. Of course, I was so happy with the call. I was so enthusiastic to say yes, because it's been 15 years that I've not been here to Boracay. But after a few days, I received another call from my boss asking me if I could give a talk on homotoxicology, and that call made me sad. Because I thought I was off for a drug vacation in Boracay, only to find out that I still have work to do. It's causing my heart rate to be 103 by now. Honestly, I was hesitant at first and very apprehensive to say yes for two reasons. The first reason is because of the experience talking in front of doctors. This is the second time that I have to face doctors as my audience. We have been doing a lot of health talks all over the country with different audiences. But it's just the second time that I have to face doctors, and I'm very, very apprehensive. And it's also the second time that I have to use a PowerPoint, which I don't know really how to use computers. And I really feel awkward to be proposed to be talking about a medical practice that has been used several centuries back. In the last 2 days, we have been bombarded with a lot of advancement in the treatment and in diagnostics. Here comes a doctor that will be talking about a practice about 3 centuries back. But anyway, I was apprehensive because my audience, I was invited by then Dr. Annabel Fabiola de Guzman, the Executive Director of PITAC, being a part of it. I could not say no, and she was also my friend. I talked to the regional directors and the chief of hospitals of the island of Mindanao, and they seemed not interested in what I was talking about. So I really feared. But when he told me that there are young doctors in attendance, at least it eased my apprehension. Hoping that some of you might be interested to listen to what I am saying. Secondly, I was very apprehensive because many of our colleagues do not accept what we are doing. In fact, we don't believe they consider it as pure quackery. And that the good results that we have in our practice, we dismiss it just as placebo effects, considering the nature of delusion of homeopathic remedies that are beyond Avogadro's number. That every time they examine the remedy, the presence of the original substance is no longer there. So they call it placebo, they call it quackery, and they doesn't really accept and believe in what we are doing. And besides, we are saying that what we do is detrimental to the patients because they no longer seek the conventional way of treatment, which would really be detrimental to the health outcomes. But on the contrary, our practice is called integrative medicine because we combine the best of Western conventional treatment with other modalities of treatment, which is usually called complementary medicine, because we believe that good medicine comes in many forms. And these are some of the modalities of treatment that we use. And if you happen to be confronted with a patient with a difficult chronic degenerative medical condition, which is resistant to your treatment, you might want to integrate some of these modalities as an additional tool in your box. I thank God for the advancement of Western conventional treatments and diagnostics. Yes, we use antibiotics when needed. I give antihypertensive medication for very elevated blood pressures, insulin injections, and antidiabetic drugs for elevated blood sugars, and other drugs as may be necessary to the patient. We refer every tumor, especially suspected of malignancy, to a surgeon for surgical removal. And I thank God for advancement in surgical procedures and techniques. It has saved a lot of lives. But we don't believe that chemotherapy, radiation therapy, or immunotherapy alone is the treatment for cancer after surgery, because there are other less toxic alternative remedies or modalities of treatment that can help the cancer patient the same way. We don't agree that hypertension and diabetes is for life. In my practice, I have removed insulin-dependent diabetics, more than 1,000 of them. We have our records in the clinic, our patients are still alive. We remove the insulin injection in a month or two, and we cure the diabetes by just doing the complicated to be simple. We do simple things. We don't agree that autoimmune and degenerative diseases have no cure, because there is. We have submitted to the Department of Health our humble successes for 25 years in the treatment of dengue with no mortality. Before I practiced homeopathy and homotoxicology, my wife is sitting there, a pediatrician, always have sleepless nights if we have some dengue patients. But now, integrating homotoxicology and homeopathy in her treatment for dengue, he could sleep very, very well. And we never had a single mortality of dengue for the past 25 years. And even during the time of COVID, we never had a single mortality of COVID. The Department of Health asked for our protocol, we gave it to them, but it landed on deaf ears. And even for the treatment of dengue, we have submitted our humble successes for their study, their evaluation and consideration, but really didn't accept it. I accepted the challenge to be here today, believing that it's about time that we have to be here. In spite of the advances in epigenetics, biohacking that really overwhelms me the entire 2 days that we had, I firmly believe that homotoxicology has an enduring role and is the missing link in its ultimate success. Detoxification and draining of the biological terrain from its toxic influences matters much in resolving the chronic inflammatory processes, which are the cause of the many metabolic degenerative problems that hijacks longevity. The enactment of the Public Act 8423, which is called the PAMA law, recognizes the importance of traditional alternative medicine in providing health care to the people. With the Act is the creation of PTAC, which is mandated to improve the quality and the delivery of healthcare services to the Filipino people through the development of traditional and alternative healthcare and its integration into national healthcare delivery system. Acupuncture, homeopathy, and homotoxicology being one of those accepted modalities that have been approved by PTAC compromises our practice of homeopathy and homotoxicology in the country. How did I come to embrace the practice of integrative medicine? I first embraced the practice when my mom had adenocarcinoma of her uterus. After her TABSO, they were referred to an oncologist for chemotherapy. My mom, an OB-gynecologist herself, probably having seen the side effects of the chemotherapy in her patients, vehemently refused it. Even if he was told by her oncologist that by statistics, it will turn to worse within a year if she will not undergo the chemotherapy. She just insisted by telling us, let me die with my hair on. We could not convince her to undergo chemo. With our surgeon, the elder sister of Dr. Merced that is in attendance now, is a believer in integrative treatment, and we were referred to Manila for integrative treatment, which my mother agreed because there was no chemo. 2 to 3 months on her treatment, her diabetes and hypertension were cured. My mom survived cancer for 24 years. She was died, I think, 3 years ago, not because of the cancer, but unfortunately, I believe that she died because of myocarditis, which is a COVID vaccine injury. I too was hypertensive. I too was diabetic. I too was diagnosed of a very severe stomach problem. But I am free from my maintenance medications now for more than 2 decades. And I'm still alive, and I thank God for my health. I was asked to discuss on homotoxicology by Dr. Homer, my boss. But talking about it will not be complete without mentioning about homeopathy, because we use homeopathic principles and homeopathic remedies in our homotoxicological management of our patients. Dr. Christian Samuel Friedrich Hahnemann is considered the father of homeopathy. He was a medical doctor, but abandoned his practice of medicine because of the harshness of the treatment being used during his time. Bloodletting, leeching, purging, and the use of very, very toxic laxatives like mercury. In his profession as a doctor, he left his medical practice. Instead, he made his living by translating books from other languages to German. He being gifted with the fluency in 10 different languages. Hahnemann conceived homeopathy while translating the medical treatise of Scottish Dr. William Collett. He was translating it to German. And he was very skeptical of what Collett was saying. It was the bitterness of the chinchona bark, which is the source of quinine, that is treating or curing malaria. Hahnemann, being a biochemist himself, knew that there are other bitter herbs that are not curing malaria the same way as quinine. So he was reminded when he was still practicing his medicine that there were some patients coming to see him in his clinic with malaria-like symptoms. And these patients were coming from a factory that were packing chinchona bark for export. And probably he thought that it was the contaminated, unclean hands of the workers wiping the fruit of the beer that we drink. Just so the Germans are fond of drinking beer after the day's work. He affirmed that the Germans are similibus curator. So, probably it was the contamination of microdoses of the chinchona, of the quinine, that was causing all the symptoms in healthy individuals. So what he did was to dilute chinchona in alcohol and take it sublingual himself, and he developed malaria-like symptoms. He give it to his family, give it to his friends, and he too developed malaria-like symptoms. So inquisitively, he experimented, giving it to people who have malaria-like symptoms and did that well. Hence, the birth of homeopathy, the similia similibus curantur, or like cures like. To explain it simpler, if you happen to absorb microdoses of allicin from allium cepa or onions while slicing it in your kitchen, you develop sneezing, runny nose, or teary eyes. So what do we give to people with allergic rhinitis? Of course, allium cepa, because it is doing the symptoms in healthy individuals, is the treatment for people who have the same symptoms. Similia similibus curantur, or like cures like. In his lifetime, Hahnemann was able to prove about 200 homeopathic remedies. We call it drug proving, the recording of the symptoms of biological substances done in the homeopathical way in patients, physically, mentally, and all the symptoms that is recorded in the Materia Medica. And he wrote the book Materia Medica Pura. This is the list of all the different homeopathic remedies. He also wrote the principles of homeopathy, the book called The Order of Medicine, The Art of Healing, which until now is being used by us. And it was even said, although his life was very controversial, many were against him, the big pharma was against him. He died during proving of a very toxic substance. He poisoned himself. And surprisingly, if you don't know the life of Hahnemann, when he was 80 years old, he married a 35-year-old socialite from France, because that lady has a very difficult autoimmune problem that Hahnemann cured. That's why she accepted the proposal of Hahnemann to get married. He became so famous during his time, and because of the greed of the big pharmaceutical companies, they decimated the practice of homeopathy. That is almost forgotten in North America, but still it is popular in the European Union, where over 200 million people use homeopathy regularly across the globe. It is included in some countries as part of the national healthcare programs, like the Philippines. It's part of our healthcare program. It's practiced in 40 out of the 42 different countries of the European Union. Over 6 billion Americans are using it daily. 10% of the population of the United Kingdom, including Queen Elizabeth, has been using homeopathy for the treatment and all the royalties. In India, it's number one, with almost 200 million homeopathic practitioners which are registered. There are only three words that you have to remember when it comes to homeopathy. One is proving, another one is serial delusion, and the third is succussion or potenticization. Proving is the recording of all the symptoms in healthy individuals. Serial delusion means how is homeopathic remedies are produced. From the mother tincture, you get one part of it and add it to 99 part of either water or alcohol. You shake it very violently, and it's called 1C. From the 1C, you get a part, divide it in 99 part of water or alcohol, shake it to push it, shake it, it's 2C, 2C to 3C, so on and so forth, and you usually use 30C when it comes to physical symptoms of patients, and we use 200C. You could imagine doing the serial delusion 200 times. That's why most of the Western conventional doctors say that it is placebo, because nothing is there. So it is compared to only ordinary cellular dilution, homeopathic preparation is done with suppression, and it is believed that the biological imprint of the original substance in the water, its quantum information is left in the water. That is what causes the effect of homeopathy. And to quote some famous personalities, Dr. John Weir, the physician to the royalties of Europe, said, and I quote, "I believe what prevents men from accepting homeopathic principles is ignorance. But ignorance is criminal when human lives are at stake. No honest man faced with the facts of homeopathy can refuse to accept it. He has no choice. When I have to face it, I have to become a follower. There is no choice if I were to continue to be an honest man. Truth always demands adherence and offers no alternative." And another famous guy from India once said, to quote him, "Homeopathy cures a larger percentage of cases than any other form of treatment and is beyond doubt safer and more economical. It is safe because it is diluted beyond Avogadro's number. And it is economical because it's very cheap to produce a lot of them. It only becomes expensive in our country because of the customs, Taxes. And not only taxes, those that we pay beyond the taxes. Super. Another German doctor, Dr. Hans Heinrich Rickewig, is considered the father of homotoxicology. He is very well respected in Germany. In fact, if you see the upper side of my picture, when I was there in Baden-Baden to train, there is a major street named after him, the Dr. Rickewig Strasse Street. And behind my background is the company that he established, the health company, and it's what I am using for the past 26 years. Hans Rickewig is also a conventional doctor like all of us, but his father was a homeopathic practitioner. Having seen the results of the homeopathic practice of his dad, he wanted to bridge the gap between classical homeopathy and conventional medicine. So he developed the theory of homotoxicology by integrating the basic medical sciences with the principles of homeopathy. He postulated that diseases are the expression of biologically forceful defense mechanisms against endogenic and exogenic homotoxins, or the expression of the organism's effort to compensate for the toxic damage it has sustained. We believe in the premise that the human body is designed to heal itself given the right internal and external environment, and that diseases, if I may repeat, are the expressions of defensive efforts of the organism against toxins and its attempt to counteract and expel them. To review some of the terminologies, homotoxicology is the study of the influence of toxic substances on the human body. Homotoxins are the substances that are harmful to the human body. They could be coming from the outside or they coming from the inside of us. And homotoxicosis is the influence of these stresses that are induced and maintained by homotoxins, and it encompasses all the substances that influence that are harmful to the biosystem. This is the concept that we follow. We are making the complex simple with this concept of wellness. That all processes which we designate as illness are an expression of the biological or forceful defense measures taken by the body against exogenous and endogenous homotoxins. Or its purposeful attempt to compensate or to self-regulate in order to remain alive for as long as possible. And with this concept, Dr. Ricky devised and developed the homotoxicology table of homotoxicosis, which we commonly call the disease evolution table. And it's very hard for you to see, but suffice for you to know that this disease evolution table is divided into 6 phases, and it is divided by a biological division in between. The first 3 phases is what we call as the humoral phase, and the remaining 3 phases is the cellular phase. With this table, it helps us to identify where the patient is, and this also helps us what homeopathic remedy to give, because we give specific homeopathic remedies for specific phases. In between these 2 phases is the matrix or the extracellular membrane. This is the interface between the cell and its environment, and this is a molecular shield through which all substances reaching a level the cell must pass. This is the biological line. To explain it simpler, when the toxins are still in the extracellular matrix, or in the humoral phase, the intracellular system are not disturbed. The defense system is intact and can excrete the homotoxin via various points. The first phase is excretion phase. Excretion phase is the expulsion of toxic products. This phase contains manifestations of increased physiological excretion mechanism, like excessive sweating, frequent urination. If you ingest a toxic thing into your gut, you develop vomiting, diarrhea, rhinitis, sneezing. These are part of the excretion phase. If the body could not remove the toxins by this excretion phase, the body will come into its inflammation phase, develop phlegm and other inflammatory reaction. When the system becomes overwhelmed, the body goes into deposition. All the toxins are in the matrix. The body will try to contain it, and it starts the development of cysts and polyps. Your gallstones, kidney stones are example of this deposition phase. If the toxin persists and enters into the cell, it starts to integrate into the cell, affecting the enzymatic activity of the cell. And the diseases in this phase are characterized by impairment of cellular function. The enzyme system and the metabolic processes are affected. So this is the start of chronic degenerative problems. What we consider as a chronic degenerative problem actually is the cellular phase, and the body's attempt to self-regulate or to compensate from the toxins that it is receiving. Then when lots of cells are affected, the cell becomes degenerative, and it causes serious damage and destruction to a large cell group or an organ. Then when the toxicity persists, the body goes into the differentiation phase. What causes cancer? Our good doctor mentioned about some of the causation. Cancer is a very difficult problem, but for us, the very complex, we make it simple. What causes cancer? Until now, the Western conventional medicine says that it is a somatic problem. That's why we have a lot of failures facing cancer as a mutation or a somatic problem. But friends, I would like to tell you, in the view of homotoxicology, cancer is a metabolic problem. And all the mutations in the nucleus is just a downstream effect of the too much reactive oxygen species and the shift of the production of energy from oxidative phosphorylation to fermentation. With the cell, because of the destruction of the mitochondria, because of the degenerative effect of the toxin, it could be a chronic inflammation from an emotional problem, it could be a chronic inflammation from an infection, it could be a chronic inflammation from a carcinogenic chemical. We have a lot, but the cause is simple. It is a problem of intoxication. The cell, once it could no longer produce ATP because of the effect of all these toxins in the oxidative phosphorylation, the cell will attempt to survive by going into an ancient pathway of fermentation. They mutates and they become cells that are immortal, cells that are or differentiated. And it is now called cancer. So if we know the phases of the disease evolution, we know how to treat our patients very simply. And even in the management of cancer, it is better if we integrate the physiology or the pathophysiology of homotoxicosis in the management of cancer. And to explain it simply, I'll give you a sample of disease evolution in a viewpoint of homotoxicology. I chose this example because personally I've been a smoker for 32 years, to the point that I was smoking about 3 packs per day. My younger brother is now suffering from stage 4 lung cancer. That's why I chose this example of disease evolution. When I was 13 years old, peer influence, I started to smoke. And the first time that I was smoking, I was violently coughing. It's the phase of excretion, that the body would like to preserve itself from a very toxic smoke with 220 different types of chemicals, including nicotine in it. So when you insist on smoking, the body goes into inflammation phase. You develop some phlegm in trying to expel the toxins. If that person will continue to smoke, if you have seen an autopsy result of a smoker, you will see the blackening of the parenchyma of the lungs. The deposition of the toxins, it becomes a smoker's lung. Chronic, when these chemicals goes into the cell, it causes impregnation phase. When many of the cells are affected, you develop emphysema, right? Emphysema is now in its degeneration phase. And once if the toxins really is affecting the function of your Krebs cycle in the mitochondria, then the cell, some of the cells will go into its fermentation stage, develops into lung cancer. Cancer is a metabolic problem. The mutation in its nucleus or the DNA is just a downstream effect of this metabolic disturbance. So if you know that this is the cause of the cancer, you will know how to approach it. Of course, Dr. Otto English Warburg, the Warburg effect, I know that most of you are familiar with it. In fact, he was a Nobel Prize awardee. And he said that cancer is only glucose and the Warburg effect. But there were failures in his experimentation in glucose because he failed to identify that the cancer cell doesn't only ferment glucose, but it also ferments the amino acid glutamine. So what do? We manage cancer patients. If the patient would like to go for chemo, yes, we tell the patient to integrate by trying to starve the cancer cells, by putting the patient into a ketogenic diet, then giving some repurposed drugs to inhibit the uptake of glutamine. The thing that we are saying, the don't. It's very important, although it's very toxic when given at high doses, but if you pulse it, it's very important to inhibit the glutamine. But we don't have to inhibit the glutamine all the time because it's also needed in the immune response. is very important for our immune response. So we should know when to give, we should know when to withdraw it, we should know when to give our immune boosters. We really have to know and really have to work with our oncologists who are open to integrating their practice with us. In fact, I am happy that now in the Philippines, there are a lot of doctors now that are embracing the practice of integrative medicine. In fact, there is a new society now, the Society of Lifestyle Medicine, which are composed of oncologists and other fields, and they are advocating this integrative way of treatment. My brother I was treating his cough for so long, so it didn't respond. So I asked him, why not get an X-ray so that we will know what is happening inside. July of 2023, there was a lump and tumors or lymphatic metastasis affecting the superior vena cava. So the family decided to go for chemotherapy. I was against it. I was against biopsy. I was against chemotherapy. But the family was insisting I could not do anything. I'm just a brother. He had chemo. After 6 sessions of chemo, I said to my brother, let's get another X-ray. Of course, there were CT scans that were done. But for my consumption, I just requested a simple X-ray, which was available in our municipality. Just let me see what happened. December of 2023, after 6 sessions, the tumor was still there. He could not walk more than 5 meters without oxygen. The veins were engorged, the face was swollen, he has palpitations, difficulty breathing, wheezing, and all this. After the CT scan was done, no change. So the onco decided to shift to PD-1 inhibitor, or we call it immunotherapy, or checkpoint inhibitor. Since it was expensive, 201 per vial, 201,000, and my brother had financial difficulties having gone through all the chemotherapies, I said to him, please, this time, I'll pay for it, but please, this time, do not listen to your oncologist. Because the oncologist was saying, do not take anything except the chemo, because it might affect the effect of the chemotherapy. This time I'm paying, let me do my thing as well. 4 sessions with my treatment, but in my brother to ketogenic diet, all the immune boosters, herbs that would lower the uptake of glucose in every cell, a repurposed drug, he mentioned ivermectin, that affects the glutamate pathway to inhibit the intake of glutamate into the system. September 2024, the tumor is gone. He could drive again without oxygen, he could walk, he could do the usual things. But the side effect of the checkpoint inhibitor has destroyed his life. Now he is in pain. Bone pain, migrating from the knee to the elbow, sometimes to the shoulder, the next day it should be in the knee. Oh God. That I have even to call some of my friends, including Dr. Ramos, said, please help me, what can I do? He could not even do series of coffee enema because of the pain. He could not do a repeat CT scan because he could not lie down. He had not slept for, I think, 2 months. The pain is 10/10. Tramadol and all this injection will only relieve him of pain for about 2 hours, and it will go back again. I used everything that I know how to remove the side effect of these chemicals. It haven't worked at all. But I think I'm so happy now because this is what happened to him. for me is regressive deterioration. The body's attempt to remove a deep-seated toxin and push it to a more superficial, not important part of the body, which is the skin. Oh, my in-law is giving again. There are a lot of doctors, anti-allergies and all this. So I told them if I were to give in my way, I should not give anti-allergies to this patient. I don't have to suppress the inflammation to remove the toxin. I should have let it go. And we will not die with any skin problem, but it's the body's attempt to get rid of the toxin. So if anyone knows how could I help my brother with the pain, please help me. Cannabis. I give him cannabis already. I give cannabis. I even give the light wave patch, the ice patch of the light wave. I give the patches. If they live a while, the pain comes back again. Too bad. I really have to call all my friends. How could we help him remove the pain? When we do treatment using homeopathy, we do detox and drainage, immune modulation, of course, cell and organ support. These are some of the homeopathic medicines that we use, because we think that probably the homeopathic medicines we use are just in Ziploc or very crude medication. No, it's not. EPAR is one of my favorite. I use it in every patient. This detoxify the liver. I was telling to one of our speakers on sports medicine to try it. There are a lot of clinical studies about Tromil in sports medicine. Some of our medication comes in drops. Ginseng is one of the medication we give for degenerative and dedifferentiated faces or neoplasm face. We give different medications according to the phases. We make the very complex. I was listening to all the discussion. It was too complex for me. It overwhelms me. Our business is making the complex simple. We have a lot of diseases that people that even pronounce their names. Autoimmune problems, when the cause is simple, that's the body's attempt to preserve itself. All the symptoms that we experience and call disease are just the body's attempt to heal or to survive. These are some of the homeopathic tablets that we have. Just to mention some of the companies, my favorite is, of course, for the past 26 years, I use here from Baden-Baden, Germany. It's where I was trained to use the medications. These are just to show you that there are studies. You could go to the website of www.heal.com. You could have thousands of studies. They say that homeopathy has no study, they are just placebo, they have no clinical trials, and we have double-blind studies and clinical trials on all this homeopathic medicine. Go to the website. And I think it's even more scientific than conventional medicine. These are just some of the studies that have been conducted. And even in the European Union and Middle East, they say that homeopathy is no longer a second choice of treatment. It's becoming mainstream. After all the side effects of all this medication, homeopathy and homotoxicology now is becoming a mainstream medicine in Europe and in other parts of the world. Friends, homeopathic medicine is beyond placebo. I consider it to be more scientific than allopathic medicine, which is more designed to relieve the symptoms of disease rather than the relief of the toxic burden that is the cause of the symptom. Just to show you the machine that I use. I do EAV, electroacupuncture machine. This is the machine that I use to test the patient whether he is in the humoral phase or whether the patient is now in the similar phase. It tells you whether you are in inflammation or humoral phase. It also tells you if you are already in the degenerative phase. And you will be surprised. If you might want to see me do that thing, you can try to visit my clinic so that you will know and you will be surprised that this is the same machine that tells me what specific homeopathic medication we will give to the patient.
Because if the patient is exposed or degenerative, we look for different frequencies whatever makes the generative result in our examination is the medicine that is needed by the patient. We use the vaccine for diagnosis, at the same time we use it in the choice of medication. To reiterate my point, I would just like to read this again as I end this. I would like to quote Dr. Hans Friedrich Schmidt. According to Homotoxicology, all the processes, condition, and phenomena that we describe as disease are the manifestations of the body's battle with poisons in its effort to neutralize and excrete the poisons. Sometimes the body wins the battle, sometimes it loses. Whatever the outcome, the processes that we describe as diseases are invariably biological processes serving the natural purpose of fighting and eliminating poisons and gold. Before I end, I would like to show you this from Arthur Schopenhauer. He said that UFOs and neutrons go through 3 stages. When I started my practice, I was ridiculed by our colleagues. I was called to be a quack doctor.